Welcome to Introduction to Trigonometry. This video will give you the basic knowledge that you need so that in lesson time we can go straight on to how to answer those all-important exam questions. All you need to do, as usual, is work through answering the questions on your sheet as you go. If you get stuck, rewind, watch that part again. If you're still stuck, come and find me before the lesson. Okay, the first thing you need to know how to do is how to label the sides of your triangle. And there are three different sides, and we'll start with the hypotenuse. Hopefully you remember this from when we did Pythagoras. The hypotenuse is opposite the right angle, so you can label that with an H. Wherever your right angle is, it is opposite that right angle. Next one is the opposite. And so we're looking at the side that is opposite the important angle in this question. So you can see on each one, another angle has been labelled, and the opposite is opposite that angle. And finally, you've got the adjacent. And adjacent, you might know from English, means next to. In this case, it means the line or the side in between the right angle and the angle that you're using for this question. And we can mark that with an A. So it's in between those two key angles. And now you need to complete that task 1 on your sheet, and when you're done it should look a bit like this. You should have an opposite, a hypotenuse and an adjacent labelled on each of your triangles. Okay, so when we get onto the exam questions in the lesson, we'll be looking at the acronym SOHCAHTOA a lot, and you'll get very used to this. For now, all you need to know is how to decide for each triangle, are you using SO, CA or TOA. So here's how we decide. SO involves the opposite and the hypotenuse. CA will involve the adjacent and the hypotenuse, and TOA will involve the opposite and the adjacent. So that's what we're looking for in our triangles. If we look at this first example to the right, we've got the angle, we've got the opposite, and we've got the hypotenuse because that's opposite the right angle. My adjacent is over here, but you can see that's not involved in this question at all. Only the opposite, where that J is, which is what we're going to work out, and the hypotenuse, which we've been given, which is 8. On this next one, what we've got is the angle. We've got the adjacent over here, and we've got the hypotenuse over here. But this time, we haven't got anything on our opposite. We're not using that opposite. So this is how we can tell which one we're going to use. In this first one at the top, we've got the opposite and the hypotenuse, so it must be SO. On the second one, we've got the adjacent and the hypotenuse, so it must be CA. All we're doing each time is finding which parts we're using and looking back at SO, CA and TOA and seeing which parts are involved there. Okay, so here's a couple more. We've got the angle, we've got the opposite, it's opposite that angle, and we've got the adjacent. In this case, we don't have the hypotenuse, there's nothing there, it's not important to this question. So we've got O and we've got A, so it must be TOA. On the next one down, we've got the angle. We've got the hypotenuse up here, opposite the right angle. And we've got the adjacent in between our angle and our right angle. The one we don't have this time is the opposite over here. That's not involved. So we've got adjacent and hypotenuse, so it must be K. Okay, if you think you've got it, work through task 2 on the sheet. If not, here's 3 more examples. So, looking at these pictures, at the top we've got the angle, we've got the opposite because it's opposite that angle, and we've got the hypotenuse because it's opposite the right angle. So in this one, we've got O and we've got H. Now, so you're looking for which one out of SO, CAT or TOA have an O and an H, and we can see that it's SO. Number 2, we've got our hypotenuse opposite the right angle, and this time we've got the adjacent in between the right angle and the angle in question. So we've got an A and an H. Now, which one out of SO, CAT and TOA have an A and an H? It's CAT. Number 3, we've got an adjacent here in between our angle and our right angle. And we've also got the hypotenuse opposite the right angle. So we've got an A and an H. And again, we say which one's got an A and an H, and it's K again. So all you're doing on task 2 is deciding, is it SO, is it K, or is it TOA, and writing that down next to your triangle. And so this last task, task 3, is a bit of an extension, but I do want you all to have a go, and be warned, I will be asking for some of your ideas, and it could be any of you. So, one of the trigonometric functions, which we're going to be talking about, and you'll soon know what that means, is sine. And we shorten this to sin. And using our SO from SOHCAHTOA, we know that the sine of an angle is the opposite over the hypotenuse. The opposite divided the hypotenuse, okay? So what I've got here is a 45-degree angle. On your sheet you've got a 30-degree angle, but this is just my example. What I want you to do is pick any vertical line that you want on your grid to create a triangle. Here's your right angle. And because it's sine, we want O and H. We want the opposite over here, and we want the hypotenuse over here. And what I want you to do is work out, by measuring these lengths, what you would get. So I would have sine 45, that's sine of the angle, is the opposite divided by the hypotenuse. And I want you to put this part into your calculator and work out what that would be. So let's say that the opposite was 4 and the hypotenuse was 8. Then it would be 4 divided by 8, which is 0.5. Okay. Once you've done 1, you can write that next to triangle 1 on your sheet. And then I want you to draw a new vertical line with a new opposite and a new longer hypotenuse. And do the same again. So it's still sine 45, the angle hasn't changed. You've got a new opposite, a new hypotenuse. Put the opposite divided by the hypotenuse into your calculator and see what you get. Then I want you to do it a 3rd time, and I want you to consider what you think this trigonometric function might mean by looking at your results. Now, I'm not expecting you to come up with the answers straight away. I'm just looking for some ideas and to see what you found. All right, so have a go. Again, if you didn't understand anything on this video, go back, watch it again, or come and find me. Okay, and I look forward to hearing your answers in class.